Hi there, friend, and welcome to another episode of Artworks for Teachers. I'm your host, Susan Riley, and today I'm excited to introduce you to Kimberly Eckert. So, Kim has a ton of different experiences over a long range of her career, and she brings them all to the table right now, talking about teacher retention, working in higher ed, building a pipeline so that we can increase the teacher profession as well as increase the support for the teachers that are already in our schools. And she has some really incredible ideas on how to do that, as well as some past experiences that have informed those efforts. So I think you're going to find this episode super valuable and very tactical as well. We talk about the higher ed connection to public schools, which we don't talk about enough. And I love that her background right now, working in the areas that she does, allows her to facilitate some of that conversation for us in a really meaningful way. And we also discuss how we as teachers can engage in action-based research to empower our own profession and ourselves to continue to be better and continue to evolve and grow as our profession grows. So this is a very hopeful and positive episode, something that I think we need in right now. And I'm excited for y'all to meet Kim. So here we go. All right, well, welcome to the show, Kim. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm so glad I'm here too, and I'm glad you're here.
Yes, absolutely. We have been, for our audience, we have been trying to get this together for months. And so I'm so excited that I finally get to speak with you and that our audience gets to hear your incredible perspective and story.
Oh yeah. Well, teachers are very equipped to persevere. So I knew it would happen, and I'm really, really excited. So thank you.
Absolutely. So let's kick off by just telling us a little bit about yourself. Tell us your story.
Oh, my story. Like which
Yeah.
one? My teaching story is my favorite story of all. So
Perfect.
I never know whether to start at the beginning and come up, or the present and then go back. So we'll start present. So my current title is I'm the senior advisor for apprenticeship degrees and head of instructional innovation with craft at WGU, so Western Governors University. But I also am so excited because I'm now also working with a school district, which is not uncommon for me. I've tended to hold hybrid roles for 16 and a half of 18 years in education. I just can't seem to quit. So still teaching high school students, coaching teachers, and working on some sort of pet and special projects. Okay, so that's right now. Working back, so I mentioned this 16 years of teaching, like the coolest work ever, which is why I can't quit. I won't quit. And I think at all times I'm trying to end teacher shortage so I can go forward to my classroom with the new me and just be with kids until forever. Special education was my jam. I was a social worker before I was a teacher, but I still feel like it's social work every single day. I was alt cert all those years ago.
Yes.
Also taught English, but it's just one of those things, like special education. I think every kid deserves an education that's special for them. So even whenever I was teaching, English, even whenever I teach teachers, I still think that the education that I strive to provide is special and unique and tailored for kids. Other than that, I love school. I love teachers. Love the opportunity that we have every single day to just be a part of the future and to be in the room truly where it happens. So, yeah.
I love that. Absolutely. So you are multi-passionate, clearly, and have worn so many hats, which, I think educators do. I don't think educators realize how many hats they actually wear until you start to recount, like, oh, I did this, and then I did this. And you're like, oh, I've had like a lifetime of experiences in this short period of time. How have they all influenced your work and your approach to problem solving and problem-based learning for students?
Oh my gosh, yeah. And you're so right. Like that could be its whole own podcast because,
Yes.
right now it seems like even the work I do, even the titles are quite, I don't corporate, right? But
Yeah.
everything I'm good at because I'm a really good teacher. And I
Mhm.
just want to tell teachers all the time about all the things we do. All the committees we serve on, you know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
think it all starts from there. And in that sense, I don't think I'm very unique. Because I think that really is the reality and the opportunity for every great teacher.
Yeah.
But But of all the different hats that I've worn, and it's so funny when I tell you my goals are teaching, like when I grow up, I want to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Like everything else, like just sort of life got in the way and had me work in different spaces. So at
Mm.
all times, I do feel like everything that I've been able to touch and learn is going to help me, like I said, to bring that forward to my future classroom, honestly.
Yeah.
But the work that I'm doing now in higher ed, and then right before this position, I had the opportunity to be the inaugural dean, serve as the dean for almost 4 years, where I designed a job embedded apprenticeship program. I piloted it. I wrote probably, I don't know, 30% of the courses. I piloted and designed a clinical program. I taught the clinical program. I staffed it, like all the pieces. But I learned how to do all of these things from being in a school and working as an instructional administrator and being a teacher pretty much the whole time. Because if you could
Yeah.
create phenomenal things in classrooms, you can really create phenomenal things everywhere. It's like teacher moves, right? I also spent some time working at the Department of Education in Louisiana. I was served as the Deputy Assistant Superintendent for Educator Development. Through that, was able to be a part of work with ed prep providers and work around teacher qualities, mentor teachers. But it just so happens that at the same time, I was still working full time in my district, which teacher
Yeah.
time is so different. And I know this sounds like it's a ton. I'll
Yes.
never be as busy as I was as a full time English teacher. Like I'm not
Yes.
taking 180 papers home to grade. Instead, I'm just designing lots of programs.
Yeah.
But all the work of the department was fueled by the fact that my mornings, I was leaving a campus before I showed up to work.
Mm.
And I think that it hits different whenever you're involved there. But even that work that I learned in terms of policy, in
Yeah.
terms of um, how the division of labor comes down. Like even now, what is the Department of Education nationally? What is my role as a state department? What is my role as a district leader in the district central office? What is my role as a building leader? And I think that because I'm able to see so many spaces now,
Mm.
it informs so many opportunities that I have, but it also gives me a lot of empathy
Mm.
for all of the different fears, for all of the different challenges and obstacles that go into decision making or go
Mm.
into the moments where we don't make decisions that perhaps we should when we should.
Yes.
Um, and I think that it just makes me a much more well-rounded problem solver. At least I hope
Yeah.
that it does. And I still have so much to learn.
100%. I have so many questions. So just based on all of the experiences that you've shared, but
Mm,
I want to ping into the piece about higher education where you
mm,
are now. Additionally, because I think you've had that state level component, a lot of the ins and outs with policy.
mm,
I think with where we are right now with the Department of Ed and the government as a whole, I think higher ed is a conversation that we have not had enough dialogue surrounding,
mm,
particularly about how it's impacting both the teacher shortage that is the reality, but
yeah.
also the kids that are going to higher ed and is higher ed as relevant as it used to be? How is it changing? How is the technology that's emerging impacting higher ed, and how is our policy impacting all of that? And I'm wondering, do you have some insights about that? Because it's an important piece we don't talk about often enough.
Yeah. Well, I will say I will answer with humility and I'll answer obviously only from the view or the truth that I have been a part of. So
Yeah.
someone else's truth is theirs and I honor that.
Yes.
Um, I
Yes.
think that higher education is more relevant now than it's ever been. But I think more relevant than that, especially now, is the ability for people to access that. I think
Mm.
that trumps all the relevancy. Um, Information and learning is never going to be the problem, but allowing people to access it and make meaning, um, that's always going to be the solution. So that's what I have to say about that piece. Whenever it comes to teacher preparation, I do think that that is changing.
Mm.
I started to work again with many of the hats because another thing I did, a little side part, is that I started a grow your own program in Louisiana where I was still an all day teacher and then ended up just really blowing up. And that program was Educators Rising. Um, I I realized then that whenever it comes to just recruiting, um, the barriers, the challenges, like things that I just had no idea whenever I embarked on that as a teacher. Because as a teacher, at the four walls of my classroom, that was my world, right? And you just start to learn so much more. But the thing is, I always get this, like, how do we know that apprenticeship's going to work? How do we know that grow your own programs? How do we know that Educators Rising is going to work? And the thing is, and now, I'm 5 years in, I have data now, I have proof points to show that these things work. But even then I was like, well, I could show you it doesn't work. I could show you how all the other things have gotten us here. And
Yes.
that I knew from my classroom, right? I didn't know why, but I knew
Yeah.
that something wasn't working. Whenever you're pulling people into a pipeline and they're leaving within the first 5 years in droves, that is not a failure of that person. And because I've coached teachers for so long and I have that compassion and that empathy, and I'm a very good coach, by the way, because if not, people deserve integrity. And I think that
Yes.
whenever you have people entering a field and their passions and their dreams that a lot of them have held for a long time, all the things that they want to do in education, all the things they're trying to change, and then they go into debt to get this 4-year education, and
Yes.
then within the first few months in the job, they're like, this isn't for me, I can't do this, there's something wrong with me. I think there's something wrong with that.
Yes.
We're clearly not preparing people in adequate ways if they feel like there's something fundamentally broken in themselves.
Yeah.
Because people don't tend to quit because of kids. They quit because of the things they can't change. They quit because of sort of moral injury. And I don't even like that we say that they burn out, because there's nothing wrong with that candle. They're going to put that light in a different field if we don't train them and if we don't retain them in better ways than we have. So I do think authentic learning it's true for kids, it's true for adults. That the more authentic we can make these experiences far before clinical years happen, I think the more prepared teachers will be, because great teachers don't fall out of the sky. It takes us years to develop that skill set.
Yeah. Oh, so powerful. And you're absolutely right. I think your insights into the teaching profession, but also how we're preparing them and that it's not their fault. I think that's people feel that way all the time. They do. They take that ownership on themselves as teachers. And I think
Mm-hmm.
it's incredible that we can recognize it. What are some ways in your experience that we can turn that ship around a little bit? How can we address that head on? And what are some examples that you might be able to provide on ways that we can do that for teachers in a realistic way?
Yeah. And I could give you, more macro things that lots of folks are
Yeah.
doing really well and,
Yeah.
and that I've seen impacted. And then I'll just give you like Kim thoughts, which you
Yes.
take that with a grain of salt, totally. Um, but I think first, whenever it comes to again, access, right? The
Yeah.
best thing we can do is remove barriers, because I don't buy it that people don't want to be teachers. I think they don't want to be teachers and go into lifelong, perpetual reincarnated debt.
Yes.
Like literally, I'll be on my fourth go round on this planet, and I'll still be paying off my student loan.
Yes.
And I think that no, we cannot. That just can't be the plan, right? I think that removing barriers, I think that allowing more opportunities for people to shoot their shot, just try.
Yeah.
That's important. And so to that, kind of an umbrella, like sort of early recruitment, early identification of students who make great leaders, who have sort of some of the inherent talents that teachers have, which all talents can be taught. I believe that, or I wouldn't be a teacher. But there are some things that we know great teachers really do well. We problem solve, right? We're creative. We think out of the box. We're able to synthesize information very quickly. Like there are actually things, if we take a look at like the actual attributes of great
Yes.
teachers, that aren't necessarily easily or readily taught. Collaboration, like just all of it. Oh God, I love us so much. We're so good. But there's no one person or one look or one being that holds the market on that. And so that's been something in just my work with teacher recruitment, going to those students who are just going to kill it one day. Like maybe not today when they're 16, but give them 5 years and some training and they're going to tear it up. And so that has been important. And then you see like apprenticeships, I will sing it from the rooftops. And whenever I say apprenticeships, like with a capital A,
Yes.
that means people who are already in the field. Like you don't have to sell them that school is cool, that these kids are amazing and deserve the best. They're already in the community. So like paraprofessionals,
Yes.
teachers aides, EL aides, janitors, give them a shot, right? Give them a shot to get the education they need to be great teachers. without having to convince them that the community is worth it, right? They already know they show up for work at a pretty low paying job every day. And so I'm seeing so much promise there. I'm very excited to be part of work that allows for these job embedded experiences where we're starting from a different place. Like
Yeah.
we're starting to train them from a place of assets, the
Yeah.
assets that they know their community has, and the assets that I know they have because they're a part of the community and they've been part of
Mm.
school. All right,
Mm.
that was a lot. I'm sorry, I could talk about that all day.
No, I
Um,
love that. I love that.
yes. And so to that, I think that really promising practices is the way we train. There's no reason why a person should have to wait to their fourth year of college or their fifth year
Yeah.
to step into a class. Like,
Right.
no, start them sooner. I can't reiterate enough. It takes years to be a great teacher.
Yeah.
And a lot of those things can be introduced much earlier, which we're seeing a lot with grow your own programs again.
Yeah.
Even as early as middle school. And I'm not talking about tutoring or decorating the school bulletin board.
Yeah.
No, no, no. I can't decorate a board to save my life. But we can offer them leadership opportunities to exercise their voice and agency for school improvement.
Mhm.
That's something a young child can do, like giving people the sense of community and responsibility to your community. At our heart, that's what teachers have.
Yeah.
And yeah, so starting as soon as we can to really cultivate great talent and interest and elevate the profession. And then my Kim thought, because I'm also in a position where I get to practice and pilot a lot. I've seen that whenever I've introduced into new teacher induction or with new teachers, really concerted opportunities for them to conduct their own action research
Mm.
or for them to lead their own passion projects,
Mhm.
they stay longer and they're confident and you can't tell them nothing because they start to own it, right? And so just the way that I would teach students, but just in a different way, why can't a teacher who's highly trained and who has, degrees and certifications, why can't they pinpoint a problem in their classroom, in their school, and then actively work to solve it? I've learned now with, my own journey, like I'm working on my dissertation now, that, action research is the cool thing, but we do that every day. We
Yes.
test things, we look at data, we apply solutions. And I think that giving teachers the opportunity to see that they are part of the solution, that they are researchers, that their views and their experience, they're worthy. And they look at problems, they're going to solve problems in ways that only they can. And so I've been able to like do little fellowships, or I've been able to infuse like sessions. One of the courses that I wrote for my previous university, it's all about action research because I thought it was just that important.
Yeah.
Um, because it's powerful. We're not powerless. We're not at the whim of things we can't control. There's so much more you can control. And I think helping teachers leverage that and their voice and their resources in ways that they never have before, it makes them much more active advocates and not so much passive. And I think that that's going to alleviate a lot of the frustration because you're not as frustrated when you don't feel like things are being done to you. You feel very powerful when you feel like things are being done with you.
Yeah. Yeah. No, we
Because of
see
you.
that a lot. We have 2 micro credentials that are completely action based. It's action research based, and they're through the difficult things, the things that teachers often struggle with, right? Which is classroom management and student
Mm,
engagement and assessment. And one of the, like, we've done typical courses and I love our courses, but I think one of the most powerful and most underrated things that we offer, as well as others, I know NEA offers them, universities offer them, is the
mm,
ability to do some action research in your own classroom and have
yes.
that count towards your training, because it should be part of your training. And you're owning the work. And I think you're 100% spot on. I think we definitely need more of that for our teachers.
Yes.
If they're going to put in the hours anyway, let's make it when they're actually working and they can develop their own systems for things in the areas that they need it most.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I
Because
think that
their needs, with some coaching, they can kind of pinpoint it more,
yes,
but everything from testing out, best practice or research-based practices for class
yes,
management, for trying new grouping strategies. But I've also seen it where it's a more seasoned teacher who's looking for that next thing, but doesn't want to leave their classroom. So I've
right,
seen it where, they're starting family engagement committees. They're starting like Facebook tutoring programs. Like, oh my, clearly put a teacher in charge of stuff. We can get it done.
right,
But I think most of all, it starts with where a teacher is. And so, in my next life, I'm going to try to play around with this more. But I'm really excited, Susan, about you even telling me about these micro credentials because,
Yeah.
um, teachers, like, oh, I love us more and more every single year. And this is just one of those pieces. And like, we have the audacity to standardize tests on like
Oh,
whatever. And you and I were talking about no action research where they're researching and implementing because, we're a professional practice. We don't just remember stuff and spit it out.
right. Yes, absolutely. And empowering those teachers to be able to do that,
Yeah.
and treat them as the professionals that they truly are. Now, you mentioned Educator Rising. I would love to hear more about this program, how you created it, what it does, what it fosters. I think it's an incredible program that our audience needs to know about.
It's just so exciting. And so I didn't create it. But I did found Louisiana's affiliation and then scaled that. And that has been just, I don't know, one of the most fulfilling things that I've ever done behind teaching.
Mm,
But so Educators Rising, it actually is quite an old organization, although it's been rebranded into what that is now. So if people or listeners have heard of PDK International, it is a part
mm,
of PDK.
gotcha.
And it was Future Teachers of America before and Future
Mm,
Educators of America before. So in a very adept move to really cater to the current generation, which we shouldn't have antiquated ideas that don't really fit the people we're trying to recruit, which is a novel idea. But with Educators Rising, it is a grow your own program. And in terms of CTE, so Career and Technical Education, it's a national club. It's an organization. So just like, future homemakers of America or, future business leaders of America. But it also offers a curriculum and just a way to help students view the teaching profession.
mhm,
Um, and a focus on diversifying the profession by putting programs in places where there's already a teacher shortage because
mm,
more is more, right? A rising tide lifts all boats. If you know you have pervasive teacher shortage in an area,
mhm.
put this organization there so you're recruiting the actual kids graduating from that space.
Yes.
And poof, there you now have a diversified teaching profession. So it's not rocket science and it's certainly not exclusionary because you're in spaces that are already hurting for teachers.
Mm,
Um, but have a wealth of future leaders in those spaces. And
mm,
so the classes really take the lid off the teaching profession in ways that I think higher ed is starting to do now. They learn a lot more about the needs of students. They learn a lot more about applied practice and best practice in research. But I think more than that, they really start to harness their sense of duty. Um, they look at teaching as a way to truly serve and give back in a community and in our country.
mm,
And they really start to see the impact of great teachers as more than somebody who just loves math, loves history, and stands and gives notes all hour. Instead, they start to see it as somebody who loves students and loves potential
mhm.
and also is really great at breaking down content so that they can be good at it too.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's such an amazing organization. And I will say this, I never meant to solve all the world's problems. I never meant to solve all of Louisiana's teacher shortage. I meant to bring this club to my school.
Mm,
And then I brought it to another school and then I taught a class. So it started so small, which I think again goes to the power of a teacher.
yeah.
We don't need to start with, I'm going to, no, solve one problem in one place
Yeah.
with what you have. And, don't worry about where it could go, although sometimes it can go quite far.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So this pipeline almost that you're kind of cultivating, right?
Mhm.
From the students to the teachers to the leadership. I think um you've seen so much transformation and in fact have written the book Flip the System, right? Which is about transforming education. Can
Yeah.
you tell us more about the book and what are some of the biggest challenges you think that are facing us currently? And I know that that might change on a daily basis, but for right
Oh,
now.
wow. So no, the book, Flip the System US, uh, it's a collaboration. So it's many different authors and you don't necessarily have to read it linearly, which I really love. It's like a choose your own adventure book. Like just
Yeah.
look at the table of contents and dive in wherever you're interested. Because some incredible contributors, weighed into that book and it's not, my space was about, you know, teacher shortage and solutions and training and how we're training teachers. But there's other stuff like really promising and inclusive practices for students who, are newcomers or learning English, or ways to infuse more practices in the classroom. But it really focuses on just our role within classrooms across America to see ourselves as a huge part of democracy, and just really finding our voice as teachers and staying centered and anchored on the power that holds, and that we're working for kids. So the book's super cool. And then I don't remember what the second question was that you asked.
It was about the biggest changes or challenges that you think are facing us right now, and how we can empower teachers to move through those.
Okay. I will say this. I'm a realist, all right? Because it might sound sometimes that like even now I have to give myself pep talks, right? Yes, there are challenges, but you cannot make me believe there's not solutions. And a lot of this is because historically we have found them, and historically teachers have been in the lead of a lot of major changes, like globally and throughout history. Often in the background, like we do, but so often teachers have been so entrenched in work that has moved mountains, honestly. So I'm going to talk about problems, but I want to immediately kind of double back to the solutions, which are teachers, right? And I was sort of jotting this down, but obviously, I think big changes, big issues right now is the need to restore and prioritize like funding for teachers. This is such a current and relevant conversation. And I know that sometimes like it could seem like NAEP scores just came out, although Louisiana's were really good. Whoop, whoop. I'm from Louisiana, teaching Louisiana. But it could be disheartening, and for a public to look and see things like that, and they're like, well, why are we funding these things and we're not seeing the results? We have to understand that even things like IDEA have never been fully funded, period. So it's not we're funding so much. We were never funding enough. Teacher shortage is not new. COVID made it sexy. There are spaces, especially where I live and work, that have never been fully staffed with highly skilled credentialed teachers. And I think we forget, we see our little slice of America as the only piece there is. But to be a good citizen, you have to think beyond just what's good for you on your street and your community, right? And so that's a really important thing. And increasing Title I funding, understanding that this is important, and we either want all folks to be like a contributing, like thriving part of our society, or we don't. And we can't get there without education, and we can't get there in spaces that have been historically underfunded, marginalized. So that's one thing. Let's restore funding and then increase it. Not just give it back, give us more. Like the audacity of me, right? So that we can actually do our job. So that's critical. I think in terms of teacher prep, or the way that we assess great teaching, like moving beyond compliance to support, is the same thing. I wouldn't want to go to a doctor who's proved the expertise by passing tests. I want to go to a doctor who can keep me alive, preferably without large scars, who can like use current technology and who keeps their practice current. And we forget that teaching is a profession. And so we cannot have things measuring this growing, effervescent, powerful field in ways that fit in multiple choice buckets, because we're too strong. We're too good for that, right? Like, so I just think things that are in support, that things are diagnostic and then used to train us and strengthen us and make us better. And then definitely ways to help us show what we can do, and not talk about what we can do. And I'm someone who can do both. I can talk it, but that's not what makes me good. I'm good because I have a highly effective skill set. It's not lip service. And so, that I'm rambling now. I'm going to go back. Okay. And then I think moving beyond standardization to authentic learning across the board, whether it's for teachers, for pre-K students. This world is meant to be lived, and we're a part of it. The real world isn't out there somewhere, and we're in it now. And I think that no age group has the market on deserving experiences that harness their power and allow them to be the hero in their own story. And I think that this all sort of stems from teachers. And what I'm seeing right now, whether it's the way that we're recruiting the new generation, whether it's the way that we are opening up the idea that there's no one person that should be filling the teaching profession, that there's space, and that we are truly better when we're represented by very different backgrounds, experiences, perspectives, strength. We're getting amazing new people into the profession that are bringing so many different things, and we need that. And I think that's what's going to keep things moving and keep it all flourishing.
Oh, so many gems today. So many gems, Kim. So much for sharing your insights. They are wonderful, and I think they give us so much food for thought in a positive way for moving forward. And that's, we so desperately need some of those positive solution-based ideas to move us forward. So thank you for bringing that today. Can you share how our audience can stay connected with you and learn more?
Oh, I would love a pen pal. I really would. No, social media. So I'm on LinkedIn, and I think I'm Kimberly Eckert. I mean, I know I'm Kimberly Eckert, but I think on LinkedIn I am also Kimberly Eckert. And I will say this: I love hearing from people that are doing powerful work. I'm such a groupie. Like, oh my gosh. And so it uplifts me. So even if people reach out and they tell me incredible work that they're a part of, or if they tell me something that they want to do and they're afraid, like, you're my coworker, you're my colleague, and we're in this together, and I will reach out and I will be like, let's drink wine on a Zoom, let's figure this out. Because it's just such a gift to be a part of our teaching community, and I'm thankful for that. So yeah, reach out for sure. And then on Instagram, I feel very VH1, like, washed out, that I'm 2018 Latoy. A million years ago, but it was my handle then, and I'm not social media savvy. So 2018 Latoy is how you can find me.
We will make sure that both of those are in the show notes for today so that people can stay in touch and continue to learn from you. Kimberly, thank you so much for joining me today and for sharing your insights with all of us.
Thank you so much for having me, and for the work that you do, and for just being so supportive and excited about teachers. I really appreciate you giving people like me a space to be able to connect with other people.
Of course. Of course. All right. Thanks, Kim.